Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the darkest mysteries of the modern era. A story buried under decades of secrecy. A story that combines war crimes, human experiments, biological warfare, and a conspiracy of silence that continues to this day. This is the chilling history of Unit 731, Japan's secret biological warfare program during World War II. On the surface, it was a research division. But behind the guarded walls of its compound in Harbin, Manchuria, unspeakable horrors unfolded, horrors so extreme that even decades later, many governments would rather the full truth never come to light. For nearly a century, questions have haunted historians and investigators alike. How far did Unit 731's experiments go? Why were the perpetrators shielded from justice? And could the legacy of their research still echo in modern warfare today? Let's begin. The birth of Unit 731. The story of Unit 731 begins in the 1930s, during a turbulent era in East Asia. Japan, hungry for expansion, had invaded Manchuria in 1931 after the staged Mukden incident. To secure control, they established the puppet state of Manchukuo. Behind the facade of development and modernization, Japan was planning something much darker. Their military leaders believed that victory in modern warfare wouldn't just come from tanks or planes, but from something far deadlier: biological and chemical weapons. Enter General Shirō Ishii, the mastermind behind Unit 731. Ishii was a brilliant but ruthless physician and microbiologist in the Imperial Japanese Army. Charismatic and ambitious, he convinced military leaders that Japan needed a secret biological weapons program to match and surpass the capabilities of other world powers. By 1936, with full backing from Tokyo, Ishii established a covert facility near Harbin in the heart of occupied Manchuria. Officially, it was called the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department of the Kwantung Army. In reality, it became the infamous Unit 731. This facility quickly grew into a sprawling complex covering more than 150 buildings across 6 square kilometers. Surrounded by barbed wire and patrolled by armed guards, it had laboratories, barracks, an airfield, and even a prison. Few knew what happened inside. Fewer still survived to tell. Inside the walls, human experimentation, the very heart of Unit 731's horror was its experimentation on human beings. Prisoners, euphemistically referred to as marutas, meaning logs, were brought to the facility. They were Chinese civilians, captured rebels, prisoners of war, and occasionally Russians, Mongols, or even Allied soldiers unlucky enough to fall into Japanese hands. Once inside, they ceased to be treated as human. Instead, they became experimental subjects in some of the most disturbing medical trials ever documented. 1. Vivisection without anesthesia. One of Unit 731's most notorious practices was vivisection, the surgical dissection of living humans. Victims were deliberately infected with diseases like plague, cholera, anthrax, or syphilis. Once the disease progressed, they were dissected alive so researchers could study the effects on living tissue and organs in real time. Anesthesia was rarely used, as Ishii's team argued it might interfere with pure results. 2. Disease testing. Unit 731 developed biological weapons designed for mass destruction. Prisoners were exposed to bubonic plague, smallpox, typhus, and more. Fleas carrying plague were bred in massive numbers, then dropped from airplanes onto Chinese villages, sparking outbreaks that killed thousands. 3. Frostbite experiments. In the freezing winters of Manchuria, prisoners were subjected to frostbite tests. Their limbs were exposed to sub-zero temperatures until the skin froze solid. Researchers would then attempt crude treatments, rubbing with salt, striking the limbs with sticks, or applying fire, all to study the effects of cold injuries. 4. Weapon testing. Prisoners were tied to stakes and bombed with grenades, flamethrowers, or chemical weapons, so scientists could study the impact radius and lethality. Others were shot at close range to test bullet wounds and surgical treatments. 5. Sexual violence and pregnancy experiments. Female prisoners were systematically raped by guards and researchers. Some were forcibly impregnated so Unit 731 could study the effects of venereal diseases and the transmission of pathogens from mother to fetus. The level of cruelty is almost beyond comprehension. Yet Ishii's men considered it all science in service of Japan's military ambition. Field testing and AMP biological warfare unit. 731 wasn't just about lab experiments. Its work extended directly to the battlefield. From 1937 onward, biological weapons were tested on entire villages in occupied China. Planes released plague-infested fleas, anthrax spores, and cholera bacteria over towns and reservoirs. Food supplies were poisoned. Wells were contaminated. The results were devastating. Tens of thousands of Chinese civilians died from outbreaks deliberately engineered by Unit 731. Some estimates place the number of deaths caused by their biological warfare campaigns at 200,000 or more. Entire regions lived in fear of invisible enemies, disease and infection deliberately unleashed by a modern army. The fall of Unit 731. By 1945, Japan was on the brink of defeat. As Soviet forces advanced into Manchuria, Ishii ordered Unit 731's facilities destroyed. Buildings were demolished, documents burned, and thousands of remaining prisoners executed to erase evidence. But secrets that dark rarely stay buried. Soviet troops captured some staff, while others fled back to Japan. Ishii himself vanished into obscurity. For a time, it seemed justice might come. And yet, in one of history's greatest cover-ups, most of Unit 731's scientists escaped prosecution. The cover-up. The United States' role after World War II, the world turned its eyes toward the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal, where Japanese leaders were tried for atrocities. But strangely, Unit 731 was barely mentioned. Why? Because the United States struck a secret deal. American intelligence saw value in Unit 731's research. In exchange for immunity, Ishii and his colleagues handed over their data on biological warfare and human experimentation. The U.S. government believed this information, obtained at the cost of thousands of human lives, could give them an edge in the Cold War. Documents later revealed that the U.S. Army and CIA considered the experiments too valuable to ignore. Ishii lived freely in Japan until his death in 1959. Many of his staff went on to hold prominent positions in universities, research institutes, and corporations. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union ran its own trials in Khabarovsk in 1949, convicting some captured Unit 731 staff. But in the West, the story remained suppressed for decades. The legacy of Unit 731. The legacy of Unit 731 is twofold: the unspeakable suffering of its victims and the uncomfortable question of how much modern science owes to unethical experiments. Some historians argue that research from Unit 731 may have influenced Cold War biological weapons programs in both the US and the Soviet Union. Others point to suspicious outbreaks of diseases during the Korean War, sparking allegations that the U.S. secretly deployed bioweapons based on Unit 731's findings. Survivors and their families spent decades fighting for recognition, apologies, and compensation. Only in recent years has Japan acknowledged parts of this dark history, though official apologies remain rare. Even today, Unit 731's full archives are incomplete. Many documents remain classified or destroyed, and so the shadow of what truly happened still lingers. Conclusion: Unit 731 represents one of the darkest chapters in human history, a blend of science, cruelty, and political cover-up. It reminds us that unchecked ambition and secrecy can lead to atrocities that defy morality and reason. The story forces us to confront difficult truths. What price is too high for scientific advancement? How far will governments go to protect secrets if they see potential power in them? And most disturbingly, are we still living with the hidden consequences of Unit 731 today? The truth of Unit 731 was meant to stay buried in Manchuria's frozen soil. But history has a way of resurfacing. And every survivor's story, every uncovered document, and every unanswered question keeps this mystery alive. Because some shadows never fully fade. Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary valuable, stay tuned. More hidden histories and dark mysteries are coming soon.